Again, as I've said, as I've broken down every single video in at least one news video for the last week or so, WrestleMania week starts on March 30th as a joint show between New Japan and Impact Wrestling will be taking place. And also, as to further a story that I spoke about earlier, Will Ospreay will not be taking place in that joint show, and thus his match with Speedball Mike Bailey will not be taking place either. Instead, Speedball will be against the ace of New Japan, Hiroshi Tanahashi, which should be a spectacular match. This going along with the other big match for the event, Kushida against Josh Alexander, who is the reigning, defending, undisputed Impact Wrestling World Champion. But now we jump back over to, but then we will jump over to Ring of Honor on March 31st with Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor. Not just that, but the go-home show of SmackDown before WrestleMania and Rampage, our normal preview for Rampage. So it's going to be a busy Friday, unquestionably, on March 31st. Then, and also the Hall of Fame ceremony takes place on March 31st as well. But also, April 1st, NXT Stand and Deliver and WrestleMania Night 1 will take place on April 1st, with April 2nd being WrestleMania Night 2, and then of course, April 3rd is the night after WrestleMania, when we will most likely get information about the upcoming WWE draft, which will lead to NXT call-ups post-WrestleMania, and something that a lot of people have been waiting for is who will be joining the main roster via the draft from NXT. I think there are likely some members of the women's roster that will be joining NXT. Or I'd be surprised if nobody from the women's roster joins joins the main roster. Because WWE usually surprises us at least with one or two. And also the rumors now from Worked Wrestling, WRKD, on Twitter, is that Braun Breaker and Cameron Grimes will be making their appearance. Will be getting called up to the main roster. I don't know why that was so difficult to say, but they will be getting called up to the main roster following WrestleMania. Both men are more than deserving of a call up. Braun Breaker has skyrocketed in about 2.5 years to the main roster, which is something that I don't think anybody expected when he first debuted on the main in NXT, because I do believe, I could be wrong, but I do believe that Braun Breaker made his WWE debut in the training center, or in the performance center, during pandemic time, and has skyrocketed since the start of NXT 2.0 and has been the flag bearer for NXT since. But now it's time for, well, it's Mellow time. It is Mellow time. Unquestionably, and with that being said, we move over to the remaining addition, or the two remaining additions, I should say, to NXT Stand and Deliver, as Wesley was set to defend his NXT North American Championship in a fatal 5-way, where he would determine the challengers, and 3 out of 4 challengers were announced, with Ilya Dragunov, JD McDonough, and Dragon Lee thus far being announced for the North American Championship match, as, well, basically WWE found a way to continue that feud between Ilya Dragunov and JD McDonough without having them compete in a one-on-one contest. So props to WWE for that, but also, there is no reason, in my opinion, why Ilya Dragunov or JD McDonough should not leave Stand and Deliver with a North American Championship. But we'll break down that at a later date. But also Gallus will be defending the NXT Tag Team titles against the Creed brothers and Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks Lorenzo. Gallus boys have been a surprise since they returned to NXT back in January, I do believe, as they were the ones to dethrone the New Day for the NXT Tag Team titles, and it has been a pleasant surprise seeing them on NXT over the last couple of months. But I don't know that they will lose the titles tonight or lose the titles at Stand and Deliver, but it would be interesting to see. I mean, it's interesting to see D'Angelo and Stacks in the tag team division, and also it's a pleasant sight to see the Creed brothers back challenging for the NXT titles. Thus far right now, Braun Breaker versus Carmelo Hayes for the NXT Championship. The NXT Women's the vacated NXT Women's title in a ladder match, a 5-way ladder match for the NXT Women's Championship. Zoe Stark, Gigi Dolan, Tiffany Stratton, Laya Valkyrie, and someone to be determined will be colliding in what should be a hard-hitting affair for the NXT Women's Championship, as right now 4 women who have never been NXT Women's Champion are colliding for the NXT Women's Championship. And it is very likely that whomever will take up that 5th spot will be announced on NXT this Tuesday night. And the same could be said for the Fatal 5-Way for the North American Championship, as Wesley defends his championship in one match that has the odds stacked against him. Wesley against Dragon Lee, Ilya Dragunov, JD McDonough, and again to be determined, which will likely be announced on NXT this Tuesday night. Again, the triple threat match, as I mentioned earlier, Gallus defends against the Creed brothers and Channing Stacks Lorenzo, and against Gallus. The Gallus defense against the Creed brothers and D'Angelo and Stacks. And for the women's division, Kiana James and Fallon Hensley defend the NXT Women's Tag Team titles against Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. Will we find out what has been going on with what secret Kiana James has been keeping at NXT Stand and Deliver? Or will that story continue to play out? I guess we'll find out in a few short weeks. Also, an unsanctioned match between Johnny Gargano and Grayson Waller. Long-term storytelling at its finest, as Grayson Waller is the one who sent Johnny away when Johnny left NXT the first time. But as we spoke about in the other video, the last match announced for NXT Stand and Deliver at this point is an 8-person tag team match, The Schism against Chase University with Tyler Bate, where if Schism wins, they get control of Chase U. That is NXT Stand and Deliver at this point, right now, and we will break it down again, or I will keep you guys up to date on who will be added to those title matches respectively, probably after NXT this week on Tuesday. But the last bit of news we have before we wrap up this news video is Roman Reigns is set to take a break, is set to take a long hiatus when he does in fact lose the titles. And according to WrestleVotes, there is not a guarantee that Roman Reigns will lose the NXT Tag Team will lose the Undisputed Universal Championship at WrestleMania to Cody Rhodes, because according to WrestleVotes, that finish is yet to be determined or yet to be set in stone, which, in my opinion, it's more than likely that WWE just wants to keep it under wraps. So it might just be that they don't know. Because I do think that if Roman Reigns was going to lose the title, it would make the most sense to have Roman lose the title at the Showcase of the Immortals. Because if you were not going to have him lose it to Sami, have him lose it to Cody. Because the real question is, if Roman does not lose to Cody, who's left? Who's left? But right now, WrestleVotes is also reporting that Roman's break will see Roman disappear from programming, probably up until SummerSlam, or it could be upwards until SummerSlam, which, in my opinion, there is nobody in WWE that deserves a break more than the Tribal Chief, because he has carried the company on his back for the better part of the last 3 years since his return at SummerSlam, or a little bit around SummerSlam time in 2020, when he won the Universal Championship, and he has kept a tightened grip on SmackDown and that title since then. So if there was ever a time for Roman to drop the belt, it will be at WrestleMania, and then he can take his much-deserved break. But let me know down in the comment section below your thoughts on that story. And with that being said, we are moving ever so closer to WrestleMania, as we are now 10 days away from WrestleMania Night 1 on April the 1st, and 11 days away from WrestleMania Night 2 on April the 2nd. So WrestleMania is almost single digits away. As I said, this Saturday, it will be a week before WrestleMania, and the most exciting time to be a wrestling fan. Until then, I will see you in the next video.